Aloha and good morning. Um, I don't know where to start here. I know that my spirit team, my spirit squad, my dream team, has been encouraging me to tell my story. Um, and yeah, where do we start? Um, so I am a chosen one that has been through the ringer since I was a small child, being spiritually attacked, blocked, even attempted to be taken out by my family. Um, Recently, within the last 7 years, I was lured to a small community in Maui, very spiritual community in Maui called Kipohulu. It's my ancestral land, um, the area where my grandmother was born, um, and have a lot of family there. And I've been told since I was a child um, not to go there because it's full of magic. I mean, the district that Kipohulu is in is called Hana. There's two meanings to that. One is work, the other is mystic. And the area is very mystical, very spiritual, um, very dense. And the community I lived in was basically, there was few Native Hawaiians, people of the land, Kanaka Maoli, and majority of the residents there were wealthy, elite landowners, celebrities, and secret societies. I believe mostly Masons and Eastern Stars. And I was befriended, seduced, and entered into a false relationship with a high level Mason that, along with his ex wife, who I thought was my friend and who I thought they were divorced, um, attempted to isolate me, block me, um, throwing a lot of spell work at me, and stealing my energy. Basically, I was the community's power supply for energy for them to manifest. And they kept me in a, I can't say they kept me, I chose because I was ignorant to the fact of what was going on, until my ancestors woke me up to the illusion that had been cast on me. um, I thought I was in love. I was in love with the illusion. I thought I was really living my best life. I lived in a beautiful location. Um, People that I thought were my friends and my family were actually collaborating to keep me stuck, to keep my mana um, stuck. And I was excited. I was sharing my ideas for businesses and sharing my dreams of, what basically what the Most High was sharing with me. And and every time I did that, it would be blocked. Um, and it wasn't until December I was working 3 jobs. Um, and I was triangulated by a group of witches, a spiritual community um, that I didn't realize that the entire town, basically, give or take a few people, um, was involved in this, and they had prepared for this a few years in advance for my arrival, and basically cattle shooted me into this life that was an illusion and chaos, um, ultimately weaponizing my own children uh, for their agenda. A lot of mind control. These practitioners, witches, and warlocks from these organizations know how to manipulate energy, a lot of mind control and emotional manipulation. So this went on for 7 years before, almost almost 7 years before I realized, until I was shown, until I was uh, awakened to what was really going on. And and then I was called crazy. Um, my ex was a romance scammer working with his ex-wife. Um, very influential. His ex-wife um, has a lot of status, connections, um, is looked up to in the community because of her family name of a very famous pilot that, or the first pilot that sailed the Atlantic. I'm not sailed, flew across the Atlantic. Um, yeah, so you know who that is. Anyways, um, witches and warlocks, and they worked to steal my spiritual gifts, my inheritance. I believe that's still going on in court right now. Um, and they recruited an army, like literally an army, to spiritually attack me. Thank God for my spirit team blocking a lot of the attacks. And this happened. I witnessed it in front of my 2 eyes and my third eye. Um, one of the tactics is basically to keep you off balance. So they tried to keep me off balance by using my children and the people that they recruited around me that were um, paid to act like friends, um, paid my extended family. They did manage to steal part of my inheritance, which involves uh, monetary and real estate assets. And for a little while there, they were able to borrow my spiritual gifts. They are being returned to me, and my ancestors were definitely um, major players in this, being that the land that I was living on most recently is my ancestral land. I was called back to this one. We call it Ahupua'a, which is a section of land that goes from the mountain to the ocean. And my ancestors brought me back to that land because it was my safe space. And they could keep me protected while they were working behind the scenes. And this goes so far back, so far back. Um, and I'll get to that in a different video. So I'm basically going to work backwards from the most recent activities. And when my ancestors woke me up and showed me what was really going on in my romantic relationship, in my familial relationships, in my friend relationships, um, I was guided to cut everybody off, everybody. Um, and it was very sudden that I cut off my ex. And his ex-wife, who I thought was my friend, um, my siblings, and eventually the hardest part, they showed me that my children were also working with them and using my grandchildren as leverage to create chaos and negative emotions, um, to hurt me. But with the help of my ancestors, the Most High God, and my angels, oh my gosh, I really do have the highest level of protection that exists in this, in all realms, actually. Um, yeah, they really went after what was most important to me, which was my children and my grandchildren. And that was the last of it, cutting the cords from my kids and just laying my grandkids at the foot of the cross and giving them to God and asking Him to protect them. Um, I say God, but, people would get offended by the word God. And for me, that's who I know the Holy Spirit as, the Aloha Spirit, um, the universe, divine source, oneness. In Hawaiian, we call that spirit Io, the Most High. We also have Akua, which is used more often, but the Most High is Io. And the Holy Spirit has been my source of strength and courage. My faith in God was just amplified during this time. So it's been it's been 5 months now. They tried to trap me. I lived on this property that was fully off-grid, water catch only, with tanks and cisterns, solar power. So not a lot of access. It's 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, depending on how fast you drive, to get from Kipahulu into town. Very isolated. I had a car. I bought a car that was tampered with and sabotaged. So I didn't have a vehicle. I had to depend on my ex basically for everything. So when my car went down, I didn't really have a way out. So I was stuck in that spot. They poisoned the water. I saw other residents of that land bringing, those 5-gallon jugs of water, and they would go shopping and they would get themselves water. And I didn't have access to store-bought water, so I drank the water that was provided from the catchment tanks. And I survived. Most of that stuff didn't even tickle me. And I started really realizing and seeing who I was. I mean, I've always known that I had God's favor, always. But I really started seeing how all of these attacks were being blocked. My health, the attacks on my health, I didn't have access really to go grocery shopping unless I basically went back to my ex and begged him. And that's what he wanted. He wanted me isolated and dependent on him so he could control my energy. He is today still leader of a satanic cult that practices a lot of sex magic. He had a lot of groupies. He is well known in the spiritual community. In fact, a lot of younger, the children of these secret societies would go to this isolated community full of witches and warlocks to be taught the ways, the magic by my ex and his ex-wife. And so there was a lot of transient people that would come through. And I know when I first got there, this was right after my grandson was when my grandson was born. Um, and it was all part of the plot and the plan to get me there, to trap me there, and use my energy, my mana, um, for their benefit. And I started looking around and seeing that there was a lot of missing people. And throughout the years that I was um, there was a lot of people that went missing. And what was revealed to me was either people um, being either spiritually assassinated and bodies being disposed of, um, or used for organ trafficking. Um, and I knew from the very beginning that I had a purpose there, that I was meant to put an end to all of the corruption that was going on there. Um, when my grandson was born, I saw all of that, and I was willing to do whatever I had to protect him, because I know that they were trafficking children. I know that they were using uh, children, their pure, innocent, light energy, um, for for their benefit, for their agenda. Um, One part I know that is part of the agenda is the takeover. There was maybe a handful of Hawaiian families left in that community. Um, and I could see that the natives were being squeezed out, either by feeding their addictions, um, or keeping them under the thumb of these foreigners who were moving in and buying up all the land, and monopolizing the resources, especially water. Water is a big one. In a place that is so wet, it's amazing how there could be water wars. But there are uh, powerful and influential families that own property and homes there that monopolize the water system. And the Hawaiian families, because the area is so isolated, in order to make a living, they have to work for these families and basically be under their thumbs and take the breadcrumbs. Otherwise, they would have to leave their land and move into a more populated area to find work and sustain their families. And I noticed that if the Hawaiians spoke up against the corruption that was happening, um, there was spell work put on them. They were attacked. They were either, there was spell work on their health, whether it was heart attack spells, um, what do you call strokes, um, you know, drug addiction, suicide spells, um, and just a multitude of ways to attack. Um, these people are deviants and regularly would have um, orgies and sex rituals for the manifestations using other people's energies, and in the last 7 years primarily mine, um, involving my daughters, using mind control and manipulation. um, my ex fathered a child with my beautiful daughter, and they kept that a secret. It wasn't until maybe March that I was shown that. I confronted my ex, and he just said I was crazy. Um, but when I mentioned it to other people, they saw the resemblance between my ex and my grandson. He's beautiful. So I am grateful. I'm grateful for my grandson, no matter who his dad is, and no matter what choices his mom made. Um, but yeah, they were using my children in rituals and trying to destiny swap with me. Um, Basically, sold my soul uh, to someone else. I was being secretly surveillanced. It was interesting because sometimes I would be in my home, my, what do you even call it, cabin, actually, this tiny one room cabin. Um, and I would say things, and then my ex would say something, like repeat exactly what I said while we were having coffee or something. Um, so I was being surveillanced, and they, because I am chosen um, by the divine for this purpose of exposing these societies, um, they know that my bloodline is also chosen. So they were attacking um, myself, my children, and my grandchildren because they carry the light. They carry the light of God. And they tried isolating me, but that backfired because all that did was cause me to go into hermit mode and really uh, go within. I mean, over the past 7 years, you know, there was heartbreak, disagreements between myself and my daughter, where my grandson was withheld from me, and my relationship with my daughter was really on the rocks. And she only came to me when she needed something. But interesting enough, when I cut my friend and my ex out of my life, it was my daughter who was the first one to call me and ask me what happened and why, and encouraging me to basically go back to these relationships, and that it would, you know, that it was important for me to go back to these relationships, which basically revealed her involvement in the whole plot and scam, because she was the reason I moved to this little town, village, whatever you want to call it. no stores, no stoplights, um, very, very isolated. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Um, but, anyways, that's the start of my story. And I'm going to share some more. Um, and I am going to go backwards from most recently. Um, but I was able to get away, and I moved out of that town and got on the plane and flew to a different city. I know they're still watching me, um, and they have, trackers on cars and know they're tracking my movements on my phone. My other phone um, was being weird this morning and glitching out and going through all of these settings, um, like someone was manipulating it from AT&T. I recently did get a new AT&T phone with the same number, but I'm not recording it on this one. Um, this one is private. Um, yeah, so my old phone was cloned. My email was hacked. They were watching and listening in on my calls, watching my text, watching my social media. And I don't know, Spirit said I need to start sharing my story. So here I am. Um, anyways, love you all, Ohana, and God bless.